In this episode of Spooky Coop, we explore the story of an office plagued by a restless spirit and a mysterious malfunctioning computer. What starts as an annoying tech problem quickly escalates into something far more chilling. Lights flicker and objects fly as a machine defies the laws of physics. Hi everyone, I'm Paul.
And I'm Michelle.
And you're in
The
Spooky Coop.
Welcome to the Spooky Coop. Hope you're not chicken.
Hello, Michelle. How are you?
Hey, Paul. I'm, okay.
You're okay. Well, welcome to the Spooky Coop, everybody.
Yeah.
This is our first show of the new year of 2025.
Let's hope it's a good year.
Yes, we hope everybody had a really good holiday and a wonderful new year.
Yep.
And we're just so pleased that you're joined us.
Paul has a really good story
We
for
had
us.
a really good story when we were talking about haunted objects in one of the previous episodes.
That's right.
Somebody wrote in, and it is sort of about a haunted object. You'll see as we get into the story.
Yeah, but before, I think my glasses are haunted.
Are they?
Yeah, the lenses keep popping out. Either they're haunted or I got to go back to the place I got them and have them tighten the screws.
That would be my first bet, yeah.
Yeah. We could have an
Do you have a
exorcism
screw
on them.
loose? You have a screw loose, yeah. We all have a screw loose
what
here.
happens if you don't pay your exorcist?
You get repossessed.
What a bum.
Yeah. So this week we have something, we've struggled for a title, whether to call it the haunted computer or the ghost in the machine. But
I like the Ghost in the Machine,
yeah,
even though it's a cliche.
We'll see when we finally publish it, and we'll go with that.
Yeah.
But until then, we struggled.
I haven't heard this story.
No, it's good.
Uh-huh.
It's a really good one. This is from, first name is Barry, and he told a story from many years ago.
Alrighty.
When he was in his mid-30s at the time. This is
So Barry must be an
he's
older man now.
old, yes, but this stuck with him. It was way back when in the 80s. He was in his mid-30s, and yeah.
Didn't they just use sly rules back then?
Yes, they did. They were just that, because that was my era back then too. You were a few years behind us. Computers.
My first computer was a Commodore 64.
Not at the office.
Oh, no, not at the office. We used to put games in
there
by...
were games, yes.
Yeah, we used to put them in on cassette tapes. Mm-hmm. Take an hour to download a game.
Yep, cassette tapes. I remember.
If anyone doesn't know what a cassette tape is, I wish I were you.
It was just above the speed of a group of mice
Or
carrying
snail.
zeros and ones into it. So this is a story that Barry sent in. He was working for an insurance company, and he had just gotten a promotion, which was a really good thing in his life at that point, because his family had just been through a death in the family. It was very difficult.
Oh, now I can't joke.
It gets better. So he gets this promotion, and when he gets promoted, it's a managerial role. He gets his first microcomputer on his desk.
In that day, it took up the whole desk,
And
didn't it?
He actually remembered, he said it was something like
Apple was a
a
pumpkin.
Mac X. And it had a signature startup sound when you pressed the keyboard. This is one of the first machines where you would start it up by pressing a button on the keyboard, and it would go bong, bong, and then you could shut it down from the keyboard. And there was one of these little push buttons on the front of it that you would press once to start it up if you wanted to, or you could start it up from the keyboard. But there was no toggle switch. And this is an important part of the story, as you'll see. So within the first few days of getting this computer, everything was fine. He was learning his roles and getting used to a management position. Mm-hmm. And one day he went to leave, and he went to shut down his computer, and everything worked fine. And as he was walking out his office, bong,
Bong.
the machine starts up on its own.
Uh-huh.
So he goes back. It's new technology to him, and he shuts it down again.
Uh-huh.
Right? He waits, make sure that it
No
shuts down.
surge protector?
No, I don't know. He didn't get into that. Walks out again, and bong, it starts up again. So he figures, well, he'll just leave it for now.
You sure he
wants
didn't
to
use
get
a
home.
bong?
I have no idea. Not in the story he sent. Not my business.
Okay.
So he decides he's going to unplug the machine and just leave it for the night. Come back the next day and start again. So he comes back in next day, plugs it in, and bong, it starts up on its own. So he figures there's a problem. He can still work, but he calls the place where the company, it was an insurance company where they bought the computer from.
And computers were very, very, very expensive back then.
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, $12,000.
Yeah, this thing I think was somewhere between retail for between $5,000 and $8,000 back then. So this was a big deal.
Money wasn't like $5,000 now is like $5,000 then is probably
you can look it up.
You could buy a car now for that. Probably.
And see the prorate on that. Yeah, cars were going back, I don't know what they were, 10, 15, 20,000 back then. 20,000 got you a really nice car back then.
Yeah.
So anyway, he calls the technician, and the technician comes in, and they have a look at it, and the technician replaces a part. And as he is testing it, they go to shut it down, and bong, it starts back up again, right?
Bong.
So the technician figures he needs more parts. So he goes back, and this iteration goes on a couple of times, and he finally ends up rebuilding the whole machine right there in the guy's office with all the parts that he needed.
It was cheaper to rebuild it than to get him a new one.
I guess the route the only route that they could take back then.
Yeah.
That they would do that first before replacing it. So anyway.
What type of parts do they rebuild
back then, being a computer person myself, back then I remember that you would have, much like today, power supplies, logic boards, disk drives. They had floppy disk drives back then. That was about the only thing you could get, I believe. I don't know when CD-ROMs came in. I think that was later in the 90s.
Yeah, would they have had to take, did computers have like a starter at that point? Like this thing is starting up by itself.
You're moving your hand like he's going to pull the thing on a chainsaw. Here we go. No. Oh, the gain on your voice just about ripped the microphone out of the air.
I'm sorry. But I mean, just replacing the start button, does that help?
I don't know.
You
were talking about technology that's like close to 40 years ago.
Yeah, I know. My first computer was a Sinclair.
I have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast, dear.
My first computer was a Sinclair.
A Sinclair?
Yeah.
I vaguely remember them.
Yeah.
Weren't they the brothers of the Osborne computer?
I didn't have an Osborne. I had a Sinclair. We used to have these little dragon. They look like
There are people listening to this right now going, these two old people are ancient.
Yeah.
They are
My
ancient.
computer before that was a Bedrock. Yeah. It came with little stones you had to hit together.
Pebbles?
That was a real hard drive.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, this technician, after he replaces the whole machine, still doesn't fix it. And he's sitting there, he's looking at it, and he says, this isn't physically possible. It's just not possible. So they're looking at it, trying to figure it out. And as they're standing there, a book flies off the shelf.
Wow.
And it flies off far enough that it lands in the middle of the floor.
Falling for dummies?
Like a couple of feet from the bookshelf.
Uh-huh.
Technician looks at Barry, looks at the book, and looks at the computer. He said he looked back between the three of them over and over a few times, and he finally said, okay, that's it. I got to get my manager.
Yeah, so he's like, this thing must be haunted or something.
He's figuring out that something really weird is going on, right?
Yeah.
So he goes and he gets his manager, explains everything to his manager. The next day, the manager comes in, right? And there's phone calls back and forth and apologies. And manager comes in and
this thing was bonging when it wasn't plugged in?
Yes. Yeah, he notes, here, I got my cheat sheets. Even though the machine was unplugged, within 20 to 30 seconds of the initial unplugging, the machine would make a startup bong sound that we could not relieve from the problem.
Could it have retained a charge?
I was thinking that, but Then it goes on here, right? The manager makes arrangements with the electric, the people, the maintenance people in the building. They have the electricity check. The manager comes out. This is not all in the sequence of orders that it happened in, but the manager apparently comes out. He's armed to the teeth with every part imaginable, right? Replaces the whole machine, and still the same problem occurs. And while the manager's there, he replaces the last part. He said he watched the guy do it. The guy came in and he said it took him about 90 minutes to take everything out one by one and just test piece by piece. He said he worked very quickly. They shut it down and it goes bong. So they wait for it to start up. They shut it down and they pull out the plug. The manager's there, standing there, they're waiting, they're looking, and within 15 seconds, bong. And he said it made a degrading zzz sound, right? and he's like, oh my God. He said it really doesn't make sense at all. The manager's looking at him, trying to figure out what to say. Barry he said he was just sort of speechless, like there must be really bad technology. And now this is a key point now. At that point, the manager looks at him and says, because he had talked to his technician, he said, have you considered the possibility that, there might be something going on here we're not quite aware of? Is there some other mitigating factor? And, are you haunted? Right? The guy was really embarrassed to say this. And right when he said that, Barry said a book flew off the shelf onto the floor. It didn't just slide and, you can see something slide and fall. He said this flew off and landed a good foot and a half away from the bookshelf. So he goes over to pick up the book, and as he does, he looks up at the manager. And the manager is looking at him with this wry smile. He's not saying anything, but he's gathering his stuff, and he's backing out the office. And he just looks out, he backs out, and he doesn't even say anything as he backs out. As soon as he clears the door, he turns and scoots off to the elevator. On to phase 3, right?
Yeah.
Get the owner of the company involved.
Yeah. Next thing, we're sending in the technical Ghostbuster.
Right. And this then
comes with a screwdriver and a...
This comes to one of the climaxes of our story here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. He picks up the book, and he's looking at it. It's the same book.
That fell the day before?
Yesterday, the day before that.
Yeah, or whatever,
Not yesterday. The
yeah.
day before that.
Whatever, the last time a book fell.
He picked up the book and he put it back on the shelf. And now he's looking at the book, he's looking at the shelf. He goes over and checks the shelf. There's nothing unusual. It's, there's no funny levers or anything that he can see for it to just fall off. And he looks at the book, and as he's looking at it, it had some strange subtitle underneath the title. I wanted to get it. Here it is. It was something to the effect of, the best you could remember, the lockbox method for management information flow, which I have no idea what the heck that was. Probably, they came up with acronyms out of the woodwork back then. But
they still do.
Yeah, and they still do, yeah, in every business. And when he saw the word lockbox, remember how I said there was a death in the family?
Yeah.
Well, just before he got this promotion, his aunt had passed away early from cancer. And his uncle and aunt, they had no kids. He had always been close to his aunt. She was really close, almost like a mother, but, was his aunt, obviously.
Yeah.
And, he and his uncle and his aunt, they both worked. They were both professionals. For whatever reason, never had kids. And Barry was very close to her. And all of a sudden, his aunt and lockbox just forced their way into his head. It was like a big bong sound, like something had put into his... No pun intended. Bong, the lockbox and his aunt, and he just remembered. He said it was so clear that he had been after his aunt had passed. The family had gone over to help his uncle go through and straighten out things, and he had found an old lockbox, one of these old metal lockboxes, and he'd gone through it, and there was just these old letters, old Christmas cards, and that sort of thing. And, he'd put it aside with other things for his uncle to go through at his time.
At his leisure.
At his leisure later on, along with all the other things that they had sort of gathered up in the house.
Don't tell me he found a bong in it.
No. So he calls his uncle, and said, I think I may have, there's something I would want to double check. I may have missed something. Is it okay if I come over? And his uncle said, sure. And that night after work, he went over. He's intrigued and sort of overwhelmed at this point. It's a little bit weird, right?
I would have went over.
Yeah, he goes over to see his uncle, and he's going through the lockbox, and there's all these old cards and everything, and mixed down through this pile of old cards and letters is a very old insurance envelope. It's an envelope. It has an insurance company's name on it. And he opens it up.
His?
And it opens, not his insurance company, no. And he opens it up and goes through it. And what is it but an old life insurance policy that was still valid?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he said it was not for an insignificant amount of money. Now, his uncle was struggling at this point because of the loss of, not just the loss of his wife.
But all the medical bills and stuff.
Yeah, so anyway, he, at this point, his uncle is greatly relieved. It gives him the financial resources he needs to get through this period, get his life in order, and sort things out on how to survive on half the income he used to. And so Barry comes to the conclusion that his aunt was doing this to get him to find this. And if I could speak English today, the confirmation of all this
if
for him.
If you can't speak Canadian.
If you can't speak, I can talk Canadian, eh?
Where's your toque?
Where's my toque? My toque. You're throwing me off the way through here. The confirmation of this, the final climax of the whole story here, is that his computer worked after that. It stopped starting up on its own. Her energy, her whatever, was doing something to the computer somehow to cause this anomaly, to get his attention. That between that and the book, his
she
aunt
said, "Get on to it, get on to it."
She was trying to get a message through to him. Obviously to let them all know she was okay. She was somewhere where she was okay, but she wanted to help her husband, his uncle.
Yeah, and make sure they didn't throw the box out before they got that important stuff out of it.
Not throw that away. It was something that he needed.
Yeah.
And this was just a wonderful, positive outcome to a tragedy that occurred in their family. This is a wonderful ghost story. I really enjoyed this when I got it. I thought, we have to read this one.
That is a great story. That is a really good story.
Yeah.
Every now and then you hear stories like that of a spirit that somehow makes themselves known in one way or another through some sort of object in someone's life so that they can find something that's important.
Yeah. In this case, it's not a haunted object or an object that had a ghost attached to it. But rather a ghost or a spirit using an object to communicate some message to the living.
And you do see that sometimes. And that I think is a very special thing, because then I think it not only proves that the person's moved on to a good place, but also that the person who's moved on still cares about you and is still looking out for you.
Yes.
Yeah. They say ghosts stay around because they have unfinished business, but I think that's not necessarily a ghost staying around for unfinished business. That's more of a spirit that's crossed over into something better that just wants to take care of you. Maybe it is unfinished business, but that's less of a ghostly thing.
Right.
Ghosts tend to not necessarily know what's going on to the full extent, where that's something that is more focused. That's more of a conscious, focused person like you or I. Yes.
Well, so on from ghosts, I just wanted to make a brief note here about the Jersey drone / UAP phenomena.
Yeah, we need to get back to that.
A new update, and there was a couple of news reports lately. I saved some of them, and there was one where one of the government officials said something has to be done because we have these drones and they're flying in airspaces that are not covered by radar. They're faster than our drones.
And they're still out there, but no one's talking about them.
And there's an aircraft ban on, and they're still out there.
It's still out there, even though there's an aircraft ban. Yep. And, a drone ban type
Right.
of thing.
Now, I've heard different theories from people about why they think the UAPs, what's going on with the UAPs, the UFOs, and the drones.
Whenever you say UAPs, I think custom beer.
That's IPA, India Pale Ale. You got me to mispronounce it IAP one day from doing that. I got so wound up with you talking about this thing. No, but a couple of people I've talked to on social media, and you can follow us on Blue Sky X, formerly known as Twitter, and Threads. He felt that it was the aliens or those in the craft, whoever they are, were trying to force disclosure. I don't know that that's a possibility, but I think that if they were going to do that,
there's more obvious
ways to do it.
Yeah.
And one thing I do agree with is that I think that some of these UAPs / UFOs, I would like to use the word UFOs.
Why don't we just use UFOs?
That the UFOs are acting like aircraft. They turn on a few lights and they look like aircraft.
Well, we've seen that before.
And we have seen that before, yes.
Yeah, that's not a new thing.
Yes. We've seen them go from looking like an aircraft to looking very much like a UFO.
Oh, we've seen them looking like an aircraft to a UFO that's definitely a UFO.
Right.
I mean, no mistake.
Right, from having a few lights on to suddenly having a few dozen lights on.
Yeah, or
and then
having a few lights on to being a solid black triangle.
Yes.
With a circular light in the center.
Yeah, they know that by turning on a few lights or turning off a few lights, they can easily disguise themselves. They are not stupid. They make craft that flies.
Yeah. I mean, why would
and
they...
between planets, they know everything.
Yeah, why not? You want to camouflage yourself? You want to look like a tiger. You don't put spots on.
Right. A great allegory. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we know as contactees that, they know everything we know. They understand our technology. They have a sense of humor, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they do. They're funny.
They actually do laugh, and they like to tell human-like jokes about some things.
But it's almost like us telling little kids poop jokes.
Yes.
Yeah, they think we're so... I don't know if the word's stupid.
Somewhere
immature.
Somewhere between cute and developing.
Yeah.
But they do have, they do have personalities. They do communicate.
You have to make that.
They are smart enough to know how to disguise their craft as something that we would see as something prosaic.
Right. We have, as far as communicating and talking to them, though, we have to let them know we're not afraid first. We have to go that far first. Think of it like, I hate to use this analogy, but it's the only one I could think of, and it sounds terrible. But think of it as if they are on a safari and we're wild animals. A
part of it really is a save the whales type of thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
But if we are the dolphin that comes up and is not terrified and running away, they're more likely to be, open a dialogue
responsive
with us.
Yeah.
Responsive.
Open a dialogue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Otherwise, you stun the animal, put it back in the wild before it eats you.
Oh yeah, there's a Adrian Bliss video where the fisherman pulls the fish out of the water.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my! I can't believe I fell for this one again.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like if you're a fish and you get abducted and you get thrown back into the water and you go to the other fish and say, "You won't believe what happened. I just got taken onto this thing called a boat and they weighed me and they measured me and then they took pictures with me and then they threw me back in." All the other fish are like, yeah, you said that before.
Right. So aside from that, the only other Jersey note here I have to talk about, there was a fellow, you probably all saw him in the news. He went out, he borrowed a friend's yacht, went out into the ocean off the Jersey shore, and they were there tracking orbs. And orbs that when they compared them with flight tracker software, they couldn't match them to flight paths. So they used that as a method for verifying that they were not regular aircraft. And then they were coming in from the ocean towards shore.
Right.
And that I think is another important part of all of this.
Dust. Thousands and thousands of feet in the air over the ocean.
Yes, reflective dust. That's right. So is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just want to tell everyone, if we are at all late in the early January 20th broadcast, thereabouts, it's because our dog is due to have puppies.
Yes. We have baby Pomskis coming.
That's right. They're going to be the most adorable things in the world. And if you'd like to have pictures of them,
wouldn't you like them to send it to spookycoop@gmail.com? Send it to spookycoop@gmail.com. If you have a story or something you'd like to share with us, we'd love to hear it.
Yes.
Please send it to us.
Yep.
And you can follow us on social media. If you go to our website, spookycoop.com, there's links.
Links to everything there.
Such a high-tech word, links, and I couldn't remember it. There are links there to all of our social media sites that we go through, and we do our best to update daily.
And I promise the YouTube is coming, because I have the first episode just about ready to go up.
And you have been working tirelessly to do it.
Yes, I have.
So please like us, please subscribe. It's how we grow the channel. Mm-hmm. It's free.
And, it's free to like us. It's free to subscribe.
It's free to listen.
Yeah, it's free to listen.
We don't charge a penny.
Yeah, we don't even have sponsors yet.
We do this as a passion.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We hope you guys have a lot of fun, too.
So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. We wish you a week of hope and wonder. Until next time, when we see you in the Spooky Coop.